People are also asking a bit more about you. They want to know whether you started off as a writer in the industry or how you started.
Oh, wow. I actually, I did not start off as a writer in the industry. I started off as, we called it game analyst at the time. I think it's production assistant now. I moved up to New York about 7 years ago. Originally, my plan was to become a comic book writer. And then I ran into 2K and began working with them. And they were like, whoa, you're a writer? Like, I am, actually. And 7 years later, now I'm lead writer. And comic books are, well, they're off doing, I don't know what they're doing at the moment, but like I said earlier, like, writing video games is the hardest writing I've ever done, but at the same time, it's the most fulfilling writing that I've ever done.
You get this, exactly.
You
get to see
you
actually get to see your final work.
Yes, well, not only that, you're not just writing a story, you're writing a world that people are going to inhabit.
And it's different for everybody.
It is.
It's not the same story for everybody.
It is.
Everybody hears something different, does something different. Yeah.
And that's what I love, is it is harder because there's so many layers, but the experience is richer. And the creation and getting to know the characters and find out what they would do under different circumstances controlled by someone else. That's richer. Like, I get to know characters in a game that I'm writing more than I know characters in any other story and any other medium.
I keep seeing the game and
I know.
I keep going, what's going on?
I love watching it, actually. I have to keep my back to it because I love watching it.
Well, luckily I've got it in front of me, so I'll talk to you and stare off in the distance.
Okay.
So another question is, how long did it take you to write?
Wow, a long.
I know, I laugh at that
a long time. I would say the best answer for that would probably be about 2.5 years. The thing is, I believe the writing really happens in the rewriting process. I joked earlier there was probably about 20 final drafts of the game. But the fact of the matter is that we would get to a point where I was rewriting, doing a full rewrite at least once a month for about 13, 14 months in a row. Because that's really where the story gets better, when you can get into it and experience it and just chip away or build up the best parts of it. So I believe in rewriting. I think the first draft of anything is probably, it's not the best. You got to keep going. You got to keep getting into it. So about 2.5 years.
More people want to know about aspiring writers in the industry. Do you have any advice? And also, how many years do you have?
I have 7 years experience within the gaming industry, both as a production assistant as a writer. For aspiring writers getting into the industry, take any job you can get. That's the first thing. I didn't take a writing job. I took a production assistant job. Take any job you can get. Get in, listen, learn. Don't try and assert yourself, but learn from the people around you. At the same time, write non-stop in your free time, on the weekends. Don't just write for games, write anything. The more that you write, the better you're going to write. And just make sure that the people you work with know that you're a writer. And, just be willing to help in any capacity. I mean, I've done level design, I've done art design, I've done animation, cutscenes, I do trailers, I do screenshots, I direct the actors, I write scripts.
Well, when you're anywhere in product development, you end up...
You do everything, which really makes a resume really hard to write when you're like, this is my job title, and these are all the things that I do that have nothing to do with that. It's just perseverance and time. If you want to be a writer in any kind of industry, in any kind of medium, keep writing, never stop. Because most people will stop halfway through the first thing that they write. And if you finish that first draft and you keep writing, you're already ahead of 95% of the crowd.
So I have another question about game and trailers, especially with a game like this where you don't want to reveal too much. How do you figure out what trailers to make and how to do the writing for the trailers?
Oh. Well, I mean, it's a mixture. I mean, it's a group effort. Sometimes people say, Walt, we would like to do a trailer about Conrad and kind of exploring that character. Or we want to maybe explain a bit more about Dubai. I'll go off and I'll sit down, I'll write some stuff. And, you look at what you already have in the game, but then you also, how can I go deeper? What would this character necessarily be feeling if you were asking? Actually, what I tend to do is, what if I was interviewing one of the characters? I think if I had a chance to ask him a question about, what would you think about Dubai? And then I have him answer that question back to me. And then, you tweak it and edit to fit more into a trailer thing. But that's generally the way I try to look at it, is what would they say? Not what do I want to say, but what is that character, what does he want to say through his voice if I were to give him a platform?
And how about in terms of the characters themselves, or I know that we can't really go into scenes, but what was challenging for you to write and make believable? Because one of the things that I have problems with is a lot of the times dialogue is canned in games, and characters, when you really step back and think about them, they're not believable. You can put yourself in the game, be like, sure, I'm on a space station, so that makes sense, but how do you make it believable?
Well, the most difficult part was definitely the squad dynamic between Walker, which is the player character, and Adams and Lugo, your two squad mates. For me, it was really important that Adams and Lugo felt like real people, that they were having real reactions to what you did, but also to what was happening in the world. Honestly, it's not the most exciting answer in the world, but the real answer is iteration. If you can, when I'm writing, I talk out loud, and I give all of my characters their own voices. And it's fun when I'm in the office writing, because I'll take a break and I'll go to the restroom, and everyone's staring at me because I'm having conversations with myself in 3 different voices. And they're like, who is this guy, and what's happening here? And it's very strange. Then I go back to my office or closet, close the door, and everyone gets to forget that I'm there. But it's speaking your dialogue out loud, feeling the rhythm of it. We do table reads where we sit down with the script and get everyone in the office to pick a character. You just have to hear the rhythm of it, because these lines will eventually be spoken by an actor. And the truth of the matter is that just because you wrote a line doesn't mean it's perfect, doesn't mean it's exactly the way it needs to be. If someone tries to read a line out loud and they stumble over it twice, it's not that they read it bad, it's that I wrote it bad. And I go back and I will rewrite it to make it easier to say. Ultimately, it's about the emotion that's going to come through the line, not necessarily the exact words that are in it.
So also in terms of, in the early stages of the game, we always have scratch VO. How does that change from going from, the impromptu VO that's done by the dev team to when it goes to full actors? Does that really change the way you write or need to rewrite?
Well, I mean, you'd be surprised how much rewriting you do on the spot in the studio, because we'll do the scratch VO with just various guys around the office, but then you get in there with a real actor, a professional, someone who reads lines for a living. And I have a tendency, personally, to trust them. Like, if they get into a line and they say, this is how I feel my character would say it, this is how I feel the intensity of the scene, you let them run with it. And one of the things that we do, especially with the squad, that I think helped so much, is we recorded the squad simultaneously. We didn't do the actors one at a time. We had them in the room together. They were acting the scenes together, playing off each other. You get a truer emotional reaction from the characters and from the actors when you do that. And all the times, like, I'll listen to that, they're like, Walt, I don't know that necessarily my guy would say this. This feels a bit, is he trying to be funny? Is he trying to be clever? Like, I don't know what's up with this. And, we'll rewrite it on the spot to make it work more because frankly, once my actors have started reading these lines, once they've gotten into the character, in many ways, they know that character more than I do. I'm just the guy feeding them lines at that point. They are the character. And I, trust their instinct, because ultimately, at the end, they're the professional when it comes to actually acting. So in terms of dialogue and choosing it, I know that recording sessions can go on for hours and you get dozens of lines. How do you choose them? Do you actually just go through them one by one and pick your favorite? Yes, you do. If your recording session took you 4 hours, you've got another 4 hours afterwards by yourself, sitting alone in a dark room, listening to every line that you've already heard and going, I like that one. And probably a little longer, because you're going to go, this one, it's like when you go to the eye doctor and they're like, 1 or 2, 1 or 2, and you're like, I actually don't even know if there's a difference. It's a lot like that, but much more boring. This is why I do it alone in a dark room, so that no one else has to watch it. It's much more exciting if you don't know how it happens.
So we're running low on your time right now.
Oh.
Not to say that he won't be back if you have more questions, because I know you're around all the time.
I
I'm
am.
just gonna
They won't let me
steal
leave
you.
here.
If there's one thing that you want people to know or take away from this and remember when we're getting closer to June and they're thinking about actually buying the game, what is that?
This is a game that you are not necessarily prepared for. There's the nature of the story, the nature of the experience. Unfortunately, we have to keep a lot of things quiet, which makes it hard to sell a game like this. Because you have to trust us. We say that there are moments, there are things in here that are going to shake you. I can't tell you what it is because then it wouldn't shake you when you saw it. But what I want people to take away from this is that this game is different. This is not the military shooter that you've played before. This is not Call of Duty or Battlefield in third person. This is an entirely different type of military shooter that we haven't had yet. And it's something that we are incredibly proud to stand beside and say that, yes, we spent many, many years putting this together, and we cannot wait for you to experience. Ultimately, that's really what I want people to take away from this, is that there's something out there coming that they haven't seen yet, and I can't wait for them to finally see it and get to play it.
Cool. Well, I think I'm going to let you escape from the bright lights of the camera.
Thank you so much,
Thank
as
you.
always.
I feel really formal doing
I know,
that.
it's so weird shaking your hand, but I'll give you the mic back. How about
Okay, sounds good. Okay, guys,